Seafood smoking has, for thousands of years, been a way of preserving fish and shellfish. In some parts of the world, that is still its main purpose. With the advent of freezing and chilling technology, seafood smoking has evolved into a means of adding flavour and changing the texture of seafood, with little impact on the shelf life of the seafood product. There are a wide range of traditional and modern smoked seafood products to be found on the supermarket shelf, in your local fishmongers, and even some that are available mail order. In this series of programmes, we will look at 3 main ways of smoking seafood. There are still traditional seafood smokers to be found in the UK. Many of these businesses are small when compared to businesses which use the larger mechanical smoking kilns. Our 3 main programmes are whitefish smoking in a mechanical kiln, traditional seafood smoking Grimsby style, cold smoking salmon. The key elements in the successful smoking of whitefish using this type of equipment are the brining of fillets to achieve a consistent salt content, production of the pellicle, a consistent smoking cycle using the processor-controlled kiln, temperature control throughout the process, effective quality checking prior to packing and dispatch. These haddock fillets are the ones we are going to brine prior to smoking. The first step is the preparation of the work area and the brine. Food-grade salt and water are mixed in the specified proportions to produce a brine of the required strength and specific gravity. Whatever means are used, it is necessary to check brine strength before using, as well as at frequent intervals during brining. Here we see brine strength being checked using a hydrometer. Other methods include this optical brinometer, as well as various electrical methods. Once brined, the fillets are placed on racks to partially dry. As they dry, the evaporating brine leaves behind this glossy finish to the fillet. If the fillet has been defrosted from frozen stock, then this glossy pellicle is harder to achieve. After being allowed to drain, the fillets are ready for smoking. The racks of fillets are put into the kiln, where the smoke from smouldering wood or sawdust will slowly dry the fillet, changing its texture and adding flavour. The flavour will vary depending on the type of wood burnt and the duration of the smoking cycle. The wood chips, in this case beech and oak, are blended into a damp mulch before being fed into the kiln. The fish may be smoked for up to 5 hours, but because the temperature never goes above 29 degrees, the fish is not cooked. As well as the temperature, the humidity, amount of smoke, and the duration of smoking are carefully controlled to give the fillets the right flavour and texture. When ready, the racks are taken out of the other side of the kiln, and because they are slightly warm, they are quickly cooled in a blast chiller to around 2 degrees. This cooling means that the fillets can be packed without condensation forming around them and spoiling them while stored. Once chilled, the fillets are removed from the chiller and their temperature is tested to make sure that they have cooled sufficiently. Next, they are inspected. Any damaged or ragged flesh is cut away, and the fillet is checked for shape and colour. Any below standard fillets are discarded. The fillets are then boxed up, ready for dispatch. All boxes are passed through a metal detector, and sample boxes from every production run are opened and checked again by quality control. Much of the traditional smoking in Grimsby is cold smoking of cod and haddock fillets. And as with the mechanical smoking in Programme 1, there are three main stages to the process. They are brining, smoking, and post-smoking inspection and packing ready for dispatch. Traditional smoking relies much more on the experience and expertise of the smoker, who must make allowances for variations in fish condition, the weather and the season. The smoking process begins with brining, where the fillets are left in the salt solution for 10 to 15 minutes, depending on fillet size, brine temperature and so on. The brined fillets are placed onto metal speets and allowed to drain. Towards the end of the working day, it is time to load the chimneys in the smokehouse. These chimneys are around 10 metres high and have to be loaded by hand, a speed at a time. The chimneys have openings at the top and bottom to allow a draught of cool air to mingle with the smoke as it rises, creating a cool, smoky environment that produces the characteristic drying and smoking of the fillets. A door in each chimney, on the upper floor of the smokehouse, allows the smoking process to be monitored, and the fillets to be moved and removed as necessary. The shallow pit at the base of each chimney is filled with sawdust. To start the sawdust burning, an amount of smouldering sawdust is added to the fresh sawdust. The amount added alters considerably with the season and weather, with less needed in the summer. This variability, caused mainly by changes in temperature and humidity, can also be regulated by altering the amount of air in the laid sawdust. This is done by compacting the sawdust to slow down the burn rate. Traditional fish smoking is an overnight process, taking much longer than using a mechanical kiln. The first speets of fillets are removed from the chimneys early the next morning. The speets nearest the fires are taken out first, with the higher ones being removed in batches over the next few hours. An experienced fish smoker can tell when the fillets are ready simply by touch. The mixture of smoke and cold air which has passed over the fillets means that there is little heat involved in the process, and it only takes a short time for them to cool. Once this has happened, the fillets are packed into shallow cartons, weighing between 3 and 5 kilos. Rapid chilling brings the temperature of the fillets to below 5 degrees Celsius. It is at this temperature that the finished product is transported overnight to its final destination. Cold smoked salmon differs from many other smoked products in that it is not usually brined, but is more often salted. Smoked salmon is also usually eaten uncooked, so processors have to pay particular attention to ensuring food safety through the application of good manufacturing practices and adherence to an effective HACCP plan. The following material is a combination of the processes as practiced at loch-fine oysters and pinnies. Whole farmed salmon are first processed into salmon sides, using a sophisticated processing line for larger production runs, or the more traditional hand filleting for smaller production runs. These fish usually range in size from 2 kilograms to 4 kilograms in weight. Here you can see the fish being filleted on a bed of salt. This helps to grip the fish and aids the fileter. The cleaned salmon sides are now ready to be salted. This small strip of skin is removed from the thickest part of the fillet so that salt can penetrate from both sides. This is called venting. Not all salmon smokers use venting. Pinnies, for example, no longer vent their salmon sides. Salt can be added to the side using this mechanical processor-controlled equipment or by hand. Whichever method is used, the amount of salt varies from the thickest to the thinnest part of the fillet, but must be at least 3.5% in the aqueous phase of the finished product. Typically, salmon smokers aim for 3.7% in the aqueous phase. This is roughly equivalent to a total salt content of 2.5 to 3% salt, and is what gives smoked salmon its long shelf life. The salt may be flavoured with sugar and other additions to give a very distinctive end result. The salted sides are left in a chilled resting area to start the drying process as water is drawn out of the fish flesh. This process cannot be rushed and is an important step in developing the distinctive pellicle and all important textural transformation that is so characteristic in smoked fish. After a number of hours, the sides of salmon are ready for the smoking kiln. The actual duration of salting depends on many factors, including temperature and the weight loss or curing yield target set by the processor. If this is rushed, then the end result could be smoked salmon that is still losing water in the finished pack. The salt is briefly rinsed off before the fillets are placed in the kiln. The kilns used in these two companies are mechanical kilns that help to produce a consistently high-quality product. Even so, there is a significant skill requirement in adjusting the processing times and flow rates to achieve the desired end result. After smoking, the next stages start with chilling and maturation. Maturation is a necessary step before the salmon is sliced and may take up to 48 hours for the salt and flavours to permeate throughout the flesh of the salmon side. Maturation is also important in other smoked fish, but as they are usually dispatched as whole fillets, they can mature on their way to the customer. Trimming, slicing and packing are the next stages in the operation. Here you can see the side of the salmon being hand-trimmed. The trimmed fillet is next placed on the pin boning machine where most of the pin bones are pulled out. A mechanical circular knife is used to trim off a thin sliver of excess fat from the salmon side. If a standard knife is used, then it's difficult not to trim off too much flesh. These fillets are almost ready for slicing, but first they are checked by hand and any remaining pin bones pulled out. Salmon slicing is still carried out by hand in very small businesses, but these two companies use mechanical slicers which are very effective and consistent. The sliced salmon may be packed as a single side or used in much smaller quantities in individual packs. Through a combination of salting and moisture loss, during both curing and smoking, smoked salmon is given a longer shelf life than most ready-to-cook smoked seafood. Shelf lives of more than 10 days and up to 21 days are not uncommon for high-quality smoked salmon. It is a fine balance to maximise yield, ensure food safety and guarantee an excellent product. Cold smoked salmon is the main smoked salmon product produced in the UK, but there are other important products, such as gravlax, which is a salmon fillet cured in a mixture of salt, sugar, dill and peppercorns. Similar in appearance to smoked salmon, it is also usually served thinly sliced.